The sun was low, and the shadows on the school bus stretched long and soft like old regrets. Dust floated through the air in thin golden threads, catching in the light as the engine settled into its late afternoon hum. The seats faded blue and fraying at the corners bore the weight of years. Stickers peeled at the edges. Forgotten initials were carved into the backs like silent confessions no one ever meant to hear. In the second row, on the left, sat a girl who never spoke. Not really. Her name was Rory, though she never answered to it. She sat still, every day, same seat, same slouch, hood up, eyes down, like the world had stopped reaching for her, and she hadn't noticed, or maybe she had. And that was the problem. No one noticed the way she always got smaller when the bus got quieter. No one but him. Walter Harmon had driven that route for years, seen kids come and go, grow tall and restless and noisy with life. But not her. She was like a breath held too long. And every time he looked in the mirror, she was there, and yet somehow vanishing. Then one day, something dropped under her seat. A sound not meant for that bus. Not meant for that child. A sound that didn't match the silence she wore. He thought she was just sad. But sadness doesn't hide birth control under a school bus seat. And sometimes, truth doesn't knock on the front door. Sometimes, it hides in vents, in whispers, in the one place no one thinks to look. But he looked, and what he found was a buried truth no one wanted to claim. The air in Willow Glen always felt a little too still in October. The kind of suburban silence that made even birdsong seem suspicious. Walter Harmon had driven that route for 9 years down Maple Drive, across Lockwood Lane, circling back past the worn playground and the faded church sign that hadn't changed since Easter. Same streets, same families, same faces pressed against the bus window glass. Except hers. She was new, second row on the left. She never laughed, never whispered with the others. Rory Carson. Every day she boarded the bus like it hurt, one step at a time. Small hands clutched tight around a fraying pink backpack. Her hair's always falling forward like a curtain, hiding her, protecting her, or maybe shielding everyone else. Walter noticed her the way quiet people notice other quiet things. He didn't say much, never had, not since his wife passed, not since his daughter stopped returning calls. But he saw things, always had. And lately, he couldn't stop seeing her in that rearview mirror. That mirror had become more than glass. It was a window into something he couldn't name. The other kids were chaos and color wrappers crinkling, earbuds dangling, voices spilling with too much life. But Rory, she was still, too still. She didn't talk. She didn't smile. And when she thought no one was looking, she cried. By the time they reached a stop, a dull blue house with a crooked porch swing that never moved, the bus would be nearly empty. She always waited until the last moment to stand, like she was bracing for something behind that front door. That day, Walter had stepped down with her. A rare thing. The porch light was off, even though the sky was already gray with dusk. And then the door creaked open. Greg. He was tall, straight-backed, but his face was pale, like a blank sheet. No welcome in it, no warmth, just a flicker of something unreadable, like a machine waiting for input. "Is there a problem?" he'd asked. Walter introduced himself, said he was worried, said Rory seemed upset lately. Greg's expression didn't change, not even a twitch. "Her grandmother died," he said flatly. "They were close. It's been hard. No softness, no sadness, no real anything." And Rory, she stood between them like a ghost, not a single word, eyes down. Walter nodded, said he understood, but as he walked back to the bus, something inside him stayed behind. A whisper in his chest that wouldn't quiet. And that whisper was the beginning of the unraveling. It started as a sound, barely more than a click. Not the rustle of paper, not the thud of a book bag. Something sharper, metallic. Walter had been rounding the curve near Crescent View when he heard it just after the third stop, just after most of the noise had emptied from the bus. In the mirror, he saw her bend down, hand sliding beneath the seat. "What was that?" he asked, voice low. She jumped fast. "Just a tissue," she muttered. "It fell." But her voice cracked when she said it, and Walter knew what a tissue sounded like. That wasn't it. He kept driving, slower now, watching her from the corner of his eye, how her hands trembled, how she didn't meet his gaze when he dropped her off. She clutched her backpack too tight that day, like it was the only thing in the world she could hold on to. Walter stood on the step again, pretending to stretch his legs. Greg opened the door before they'd even reached the porch. "Something wrong again?" "No," Walter said. "Just wanted to make sure she's okay." Greg didn't answer at first. Just looked at him, not threw him at him, like he was calculating the weight of Walter's concern. Then he spoke. "We're managing," he said. "Grief takes time. But grief has a sound, a scent, a slowness." Walter had seen grief, lived beside it, watched it eat someone from the inside out. This wasn't that. Greg's voice was too crisp, his clothes too pressed. And Rory. She didn't look like someone grieving. She looked like someone hiding. That night, Walter sat in his old recliner, TV on mute, eyes fixed on nothing. In his lap, the bus roster. In his mind, that sound under her seat. He didn't know what it was yet, but he knew what it wasn't. It wasn't nothing. And the next morning, when he turned the key in the ignition and the engine growled awake, his eyes went straight to the mirror. Second row on the left. She was already there, already shrinking, already crying behind the curtain of her hair. The bus rolled forward, and the story was just beginning. The depot was quiet by the time Walter pulled into the last row. The other buses already parked and silent, like hulking yellow ghosts in the dark. The sun had slipped behind the clouds hours ago, leaving the sky gray and flat. The kind of sky that made everything feel like a memory. Walter didn't clock out. Not yet. Instead, he walked the length of the empty bus. His boots creaked softly on the rubber flooring. Candy wrappers whispered underfoot. Left behind notebooks, forgotten water bottles. The detritus of 100 restless rides. But when he reached the second row, left side, Roy's seat, he stopped. He crouched down slowly, the ache in his knees deep and familiar. And there, just above the floor vent, tucked into the narrow space between the frame and the rubber mat, was something pale pink and plastic. A blister pack. His fingers trembled as he pulled it free. Birth control. 3 pills missing, 4 crushed flat in their foil casings. The kind of medication no 14-year-old should be hiding under a school bus seat. His stomach twisted. He sat there for a long moment, the pack resting in his palm. The bus around him strangely still. No voices, no movement, only the soft hum of the world outside and the cold metal in his hand. This wasn't just sadness. This was silence weaponized. This was something buried. He took photos, every angle, the seat, the vent, the pills. Then he called the principal. Voicemail. He called again, waited, finally got through. Principal Daniels sounded tired, impatient. Mr. Harmon, I'm in a meeting. Can it wait until tomorrow? Walter's voice was steady. It's serious. A student's hiding birth control on my bus. She's 14. A pause. Then a sigh. She's probably experimenting. You know how kids are. Look, just log it. We'll speak Monday. That was it. No alarm, no concern. Just dismissal. Walter stared at the phone. The call ended. The bus silent. The pill still cold in his hand. He closed his eyes, took a breath, and decided no. He wasn't going to wait until Monday. Not this time. Maple Drive looked different at night. The porch swing at Rory's house still didn't move. But now it looked like something abandoned, not just still, but forgotten. The porch light was off, the blinds pulled. No sign of life inside. Walter sat in his car across the street. Engine off. Watching. Waiting. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. Maybe nothing. Maybe proof. Maybe the ghost of something she couldn't say out loud. He stayed for 15 minutes. Then, just as he was about to leave, he saw her. 2 blocks down, walking alone. Her sweatshirt too big, her backpack hanging low. One hand pressed to her stomach like she was trying to hold something in or stop something from getting out. Walter started the car. Slowly, quietly. He didn't approach, just kept his distance. She turned onto Cedar Street and disappeared into the pharmacy. He parked, waited, watched the entrance. When she emerged, the shadows had grown deeper. Her shoulders were hunched, her face pale. "Rory," he called softly, stepping out. "Rory, are you—" She froze, eyes wide. Then, as if rehearsed, she straightened. "I'm fine," she said, flat, automatic. But before he could respond, a middle-aged couple walking by slowed. The woman looked at Rory, then at him. "Is everything okay here?" Rory didn't hesitate, didn't even look at him. "He scares me," she said. 4 words, quite barely audible, but they hit Walter like a hammer. The woman stepped between them. Protective, her husband glared. "Sir, I think you should go." Walter tried to explain. "I'm her bus driver. She said you scare her." The man snapped. "Move along or we call the cops." There was nothing else to say, nothing he could prove. He got back into his car, drove off, but didn't leave. Half a block down, he parked again, watched through the mirror. And then Greg appeared. From the side entrance of the liquor store, holding keys, smiling faintly, Rory walked to him like a tethered dog. No eye contact, no joy, just movement. He handed her a bottle of something clear, cold. She drank, slowly, obediently. Walter's hand hovered over his phone. He didn't press the emergency button. Not yet. But every instinct in him screamed, "She's not okay. She's not safe." And somewhere beneath the surface of that quiet town was a truth no one wanted to see. A buried truth, waiting to be unearthed. The park was nearly empty when they arrived. Low sunlight poured through the thinning trees, casting long, fractured shadows across the grass. It should have been peaceful. A father and daughter with a picnic blanket, a cooler, a pair of soft drinks. From far enough away, it might have looked like love, but Walter knew better. He stayed in his car, hands shaking faintly as he watched. Roy never smiled. She never touched her food. She sat with her knees pulled tight, her shoulders curled inward like she was trying to fold herself out of existence. Then the others arrived. 3 men, middle-aged, strangers, but not to Greg. They laughed like old friends, while Rory looked at the ground, still and silent. Walter's chest tightened. He followed them slowly, on foot, as they made their way toward the edge of the park, past the picnic area, past the walking trails, toward a plain white shed tucked behind a wall of hedges. Maintenance storage, maybe. No windows, just a rusted lock. Greg opened it with a key. Rory hesitated. He took her arm, and then they all stepped inside. The door closed. Walter stood in the trees, frozen. The world around him blurred. Birdsong, wind, the soft rustle of leaves. But all he could hear was his own heartbeat. He took out his phone and dialed 911. Inside the shed, voices. Low. Sharp. Then her voice. Bleeding. Cracking. Please don't make me... A pause. Then Greg's hiss, laced with venom. If you don't do this, she'll forget you exist. She's got a new baby now. Walter relayed everything to the dispatcher, his breath shallow, voice trembling. And as he stared at the locked door, that door, 100 versions of truth and terror played out in his mind. What was behind it? What had already happened? What might be happening now? But that door wasn't going to stay shut for long, because the next sound was a scream. 2 joggers heard it first. One of them beat Walter to the door, fists pounding. Hey, what the hell's going on in there? No answer. Only silence. Then again. Help me, please help. From the trees behind them, blue and red lights flashed into view. Sirens, tires on gravel, door slamming, voices raised in command. Police, come out now with your hands visible. Inside, movement, then nothing. Seconds later, officers breach the door. Splinters. Shouts. A struggle. 3 men dropped to their knees immediately, but Greg didn't. He stood over Rory, one hand on a bottle, the other clenched at his side. She was sobbing on the floor. Step away from the girl, an officer warned. Greg's voice was calm, calculated. You don't understand. She's mine. They're both mine. He didn't drop the bottle. He didn't move. Until one officer took a step closer, weapon drawn. Only then did Greg sink to his knees. But even cuffed, even restrained, he turned and saw Walter. Their eyes locked across the chaos. And Greg's voice, venomous, twisted, broke the air like a curse. This is your fault. Then he lunged, not at the cops, at Walter. They caught him mid-leap, slammed him into the gravel, dragged him to the patrol car, screaming obscenities all the way. The other men were silent, heads low, eyes darting. Inside the shed, officers found rope, a hidden camera, alcohol, a second lock, a mattress, plans, and a girl barely 14 curled against the wall like something left behind. Rory didn't say a word when the paramedics lifted her. She just clutched her arms to her chest and closed her eyes. In the back of the ambulance, wrapped in blankets and surrounded by flashing lights, she finally opened them. Walter stepped close, and in that fragile silence, in the space between sirens and soft voices, she whispered, "Thank you." But the way her hands trembled told him the story wasn't over. Not yet. The lights in the emergency room flickered, not from power, but from the way memory distorts time when it's wrapped in pain. Rory sat on the edge of the hospital bed, draped in a gown 2 sizes too big, her feet dangling just above the floor. Her hands were balled into fists in her lap. She wasn't crying anymore. She was past crying, She spoke slowly, as if pulling each word from somewhere deep beneath the surface. He said, if I told anyone, he'd kill the baby. Her voice didn't tremble. And us? A social worker, a kind-eyed woman named Miss Rivera, sat beside her, one hand lightly on Rory's shoulder, the other holding a clipboard useless. Now, Walter stood nearby, watching, listening, holding everything in. Rory looked up at him, and for the first time, there was no fear in her eyes, just exhaustion. I thought the pills would make it stop. The sickness, it started weeks ago. I didn't know it was too late. She turned her face away. A doctor entered. Quiet, measured. She didn't need to say the words, but she did. Gently. We confirmed it. Rory is pregnant. 5, maybe 6 weeks. Walter felt the world narrow around him, the way sound disappears underwater. Then footsteps, a cry in the hallway. Where is she? Where's my daughter? The door flew open. A woman rushed in late 30s, hair wild from travel, a hospital wristband still on her own arm. Laura Carson. Rory, oh God, baby. She wrapped her daughter in shaking arms, held her like something already lost. What happened? She whispered into Rory's hair. But then she saw the doctor. The look in her eyes changed. What's wrong with her? The doctor hesitated, then told her. And in that instant, it was like the air was pulled from the room. Laura staggered back. No, he wouldn't. She looked at Rory, tears now streaking down her own face. Is it true? Rory nodded, just once. Then something inside Laura gave way. She crumpled into the chair beside the bed, her hands trembling as they covered her mouth. Across the room, her mother, Rory's grandmother, appeared in the doorway, pale and silent. Where is he? She demanded. I swear to God, I'll kill him myself. But before anyone could respond, Laura gasped. Her whole body bent forward. Water pooled at her feet. The room exploded into motion. She's in labor. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. One child about to enter the world, while another's childhood bled out on the floor. They rushed Laura away in a wheelchair, her cries echoing down the corridor. But just before she disappeared around the corner, she reached out, one hand grabbing Walter's wrist. Please, she whispered, stay with her. Don't let her be alone. He nodded, heartbreaking in silence. The door closed behind her, and Walter turned back to the girl who hadn't asked for any of this. She was staring straight ahead now. Blank. Still. And so small in that oversized gown. He sat beside her. Not to speak. Not to solve. Just to make sure she was seen. In the stillness of that hospital room, the past didn't disappear. It just softened for a moment. Rory leaned into a stranger's arms and let go of what she'd held for too long. The fear, the silence, the feeling that she didn't matter anymore. And somewhere beyond the fluorescent lights and the hum of machines, another cry would soon pierce the air, a newborn, arriving into a world already cracked open by truth. Two children, one beginning again. But not every wound was stitched shut tonight, and not every monster was locked away forever. Some truths still hide in the vents, in the shadows beneath bus seats, waiting to be seen. If this story stayed with you, let us know below. Subscribe for the next piece of the truth when it surfaces. And if you've ever felt unheard, just know someone might still be looking for your whisper in the silence. We're listening, always. This was Buried Truths.